Right, so it is another morning in Japan, and we are going to talk about a productivity system that I once used to try out and use, but have been unable to be consistent with it. But I still think it's actually a really good system, and I'm considering trying to use it again. So I call it continuous flow. I'm sure it's like overly named or like I just like naming things in a cool way, but basically what it is having a system where, like let's say you're working on a project or a skill, like especially for skills, let's say it's piano, since I do practice piano. When you enter a practice session, like daily, for instance, you have a tendency to forget what happened in like the last session, or you, depending on like how you're practicing, like and how organized you are, you might be practicing a lot of different things at once, and it's hard to remember exactly where you left off. So the idea of continuous flow is basically just like, oh, just write down exactly where you left off at the end, and then in the next session when you begin, you also look at it and then be like, okay, this is where I left off, this is what I did, I'll just continue from there. And so the idea is like, okay, you basically never stopped. You're just practicing infinitely forever. But of course, there's practical limits, depending on, you need to warm up your fingers again, you need to do certain things again. You do forget things even though you did practice it like the previous day. And depending on how long, let's say you go on vacation and a week has passed, like, are you going to even remember despite having notes? Like whether or not this is where we left off, like how do you have to like backtrack and then like get back to that spot again. There's a lot of obvious things that counter this sort of technique, but I feel like it was useful to me back then, and it's only useful though if you're like actually consistent with the skill, which these days I've been gaining more and more consistency with things. So I think it's about time to actually try and optimize my sessions a bit more again. Because yesterday I had a really, really good like piano practice session where I was playing a lot of chords, like getting familiar with the famous 1 5 6 4 chord progression, and just playing it in every single key. And it was really, really good, but it was kind of out of nowhere at the same time. That's why I do think it's also good to have like spontaneous practice where you do random things, because you can learn things that you wouldn't if you structure yourself too much. Um, so there's that debate as well. But I think for the most part, like always having a goal and then having a practice session where you use continuous flow for a certain period of time is a good idea. Um, it just seems like super obvious. It's just note taking and making sure that you continue where you left off so that you're faster at making progress. And I'm talking about it because originally I was going to like, I've been setting intentions or trying to set intentions every day, but a part of me is like, okay, all I need to do is show up to the like intended session. So let's say the things that I do, because I do things in time blocks. Like in morning, I do stretching and setting intentions, and then I have a session where I practice piano, and then I have a session where I create music, and then in the afternoon I have a session where I work on like let's say freelance stuff or YouTube, and then I also have a session where I learn things like Japanese, for instance, and then at night I have a session where I reflect and so on, right? So all these different sort of sessions or routines basically that I do daily. So I kind of, a good idea is to just like place the task that I should do in like an organizer that contains each session, and then just like, let's say it's a list of those sessions and then just like the task that I need to do for each of them. That seems like a bit more obvious of a way of approaching it instead of like starting off the day writing out what I need to do. All I need to do is kind of like show up at the sessions, and then I'll know exactly what I need to do because I just look at my note that tells me where I left off. And that is continuous flow. That is what I wanted to introduce as a sort of productivity system in a way. It's kind of obvious again, but I feel like unless you're consistent, you kind of, sometimes you're just entering that session not knowing exactly what to do. So it's good to like have it written out. But I still feel like there's a place for setting intentions in the morning. Um, I think it's more so not necessarily for the sake of organization or for the sake of like knowing what you're doing, because you should technically already know what you're doing, but more so for prepping your mind and feeling motivated, feeling energetic, feeling like that spirit and soul and sense of like desire to want to do the thing. Um, like being excited for it as well. Like, I think there was a period of time, like a month or two ago, where when I was setting the intentions for the next day, I was thinking about it like before the day happened and thinking like, okay, today we're doing this. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be like something we've said we wanted to do for a long time. Um, so yes, a part of it is like knowing what you're doing, but also just like sort of priming your mind and getting yourself excited about what you're going to do. And I've noticed that I end up waking up with more energy knowing that as well. So I do feel like perhaps setting intentions for the next day at night is probably the better way to go about it, because that way, like, I mean, when you sleep, you dream, right? And your brain is still active in some way. And when I usually dream about things that happen during the day, but if you're able to prime your mind to be like, okay, this is what we're doing tomorrow, like I suspect that your brain is still working on that. And if you really, really, truly believe that, yeah, this is what we're doing and we're going to try our best to do it, I think during your sleep, something will happen where, like, maybe you won't remember the dream. Maybe, um, well, like for me, sometimes I do. I pretty much remember my dreams almost every single day, just because in high school I started writing down my dreams, and I kept a dream journal for like nearly 10 years, just writing down my dreams almost every single day. Um, so that granted me the ability to remember my dreams from every night. But anyways, that's a tangent. So what I'm trying to say basically is setting the intentions during the night seems to be a better method, because you should technically already know what to do once you enter the session, once you enter the routine, if you have the continuous flow technique. And setting the intentions before the day, like at night, allows you to sleep on it, allows you to sort of start priming yourself, and you'll start feeling that energy. At least that's how I felt a month or two ago when I did that at night instead of during the morning. Because in the morning you're sort of like, okay, you're writing the intentions, you're setting them, and then you're like, okay, I got to do it right away. Like, there's no time, there's no build up for anticipation, for excitement, for those feelings. It's sort of just like a little bit too fast, I think. Um, so yeah, that's a revelation, I suppose, that I've had literally just now, right before the recording as well as during the recording. Just like the combination of how to create an optimal productivity system, I suppose. And that's something I've always like thought about a lot back then, but at a certain point I like stopped thinking about it and was just like, okay, just do the thing, just do the thing. But like once you're a bit more consistent and doing the thing, like it is a good idea to try and build a better system to do the thing better, especially if you're doing a lot of things and it gets hard to organize it. But that's basically it for this one. That's my little talk about productivity systems and how I'm going to approach the future. The setting intentions at night thing, yeah, that was something I thought of on the spot and realized that I should do that, like while recording. I didn't think of that like before the recording, but it definitely seems like a better method. But let me know what you guys think, because obviously it's different for everyone. I just think that getting that time to like motivate yourself or have your mind think about it and linger on the thought of doing the task that hopefully is somewhat exciting, hopefully is like something you really want to do. Um, yeah, I think that's a good way to garner and get more motivation, basically. Okay, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys in the next one.